Hello, Valerie. How's it going? Welcome aboard. You are traveling late today?
Yes, it's a day trip to Toronto.
Oh, just a day trip.
It's going to be a long day.
I was going to say, I'm going to ask you for tips on how to pack because you got that out of the park.
I wish I was staying overnight. I think I'm back at like 10 p.m.
This evening.
Yes.
It's a long day ahead then.
Yeah. I asked my boss to stay over and he's like, no, it's not necessary.
Aww.
Just do the day. It's like, okay, I guess.
Which means you should get a staggered start tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. I
Right.
was like, I'm going to start work tomorrow when I wake up.
Yeah.
No alarm.
I'm going to recover first. This is like asking a lot, right?
I deserve a sleep in.
Well, if you'd like me to apply any of my persuasive hours,
Can you call him, please?
right now is probably a good time too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It'd be a nice wake up.
How much are you enjoying your sleep right now?
Because I don't get it.
My name is Valerie.
It's nice to meet you.
Likewise, thank you, dear. Have you ever considered?
Relaxing in here.
Oh,
so
it's
nice.
relaxing. I'm glad you appreciate it.
Especially for 4:55 in the morning.
Well, usually, at this time in the morning, I have to taper my enthusiasm because
It takes me a good 2 hours to really feel like I can start my day.
fair enough. Yeah, oftentimes meeting someone like me in the morning is a challenge. Because I have to intentionally remind myself, all right, tone it down, Benya. Exactly.
I have a toddler, so it's I have to be a morning person. I am forced to be a morning person.
Well, what's your sleep quotient like currently?
Sorry.
What's your sleep quotient like?
My sleep portion.
Yeah, like the quotient of sleep you get, like the amount.
He just doesn't like sleep, so I've had to adjust mine. Probably he'll wake up at 4 just to say hi, and I gotta get up. So it's definitely been a struggle. I used to be a 12-hour sleeper, 10 to 10 kind of
Okay,
thing. So
okay.
this has been quite the adjustment.
Oh, wow. How old is he?
He's busy. He's 3. He's 3 actually.
3.
Yeah, next month.
Okay.
Yeah, I do know his birthday.
I've got 3 and I struggle with remembering mine, but
Wow, 3.
I know,
My
right?
hands full with 1.
Oh, it's a big deal, actually, isn't it?
But yeah, it's fun though. I wouldn't trade it for the world. So even sleep, I would
Okay.
trade it for more sleep.
So I've heard a similar sentiment about childbirth, whereas it's extremely painful, and yet when it's over and you see your baby, you're like, oh, that was
Remember
nothing.
a thing. Yeah, exactly. If you did remember the pain and the trauma, I don't think you'd ever do it again.
Right. Yeah, they're definitely game changers, kids.
Yes. Yeah. I had him a little bit later on in life. I'm turning 40 next year, so
Okay.
it was definitely a little shock. I was used to just myself and,
Yeah.
and selfishly just
Yeah.
running my own life. So
Yeah.
so it was quite an adjustment, but I think it was a good adjustment. Yeah.
Would you say there's anything significantly different about you pre-baby and post-baby?
I don't know actually. Well, I feel I'm not myself, not in a good way.
Okay.
You definitely lose a little bit of yourself when you have a child. But I don't know. I feel I'm a lot more patient and a lot more. I don't know. That's a really good question actually. Something I think about on my flight.
Well, you also did mention the selfless portion as well to me just
Yes.
earlier.
Yeah, huge for sure. Yeah, I guess I was. Well, everyone, before children are kind of a little bit selfish. Not selfish in a bad way, but all they have to think about is themselves or their family. So, yeah.
And there's an element there of selflessness already expressed before baby, but it just takes on a new
Yes.
tone, commitment,
Yeah.
expression.
Yeah,
in the
definitely
aftermath.
grown my patience.
And here's the funny thing, we have so many opportunities for patience in the normal course of life. For example, traffic jams. Who hasn't experienced traffic jams?
Yes.
And yet, it fails to hit that zone of patience in the midst of the opportunity.
Yeah.
You're always like, oh.
It's actually a great way to compare raising a toddler. Traffic. We were just potty training last weekend, and I was like, okay, I need to be patient. I really need to dig deep because it has to be a fun experience for him. So it was a good test.
Yeah, in some sense, there's that level of investment where you're like, there's no other option but to like walk through the gauntlet here and engage at that level. Yeah. I get it. So, what do you miss most about pre-baby?
I miss my freedom. I miss socializing.
There is that too.
I miss being sick and just taking care of myself, you know, like when you have a cold and I'm actually, no one knows this except my husband, but I'm pregnant right now, and so very early on, so I feel like garbage all the time, and it's just such a different feeling when you have to take care of a 3-year-old who also not feeling well. So it's I do miss I miss that, but I would trade anything for the snuggles and it's I work for an airline and I used to travel a lot, just like pick up and go for the weekend. So there's definitely that added it adds a little bit of a more difficult I guess step if I want to take my son with me, or so we definitely don't travel as much.
Okay.
But it's little trips now, I guess.
I see.
Like road trips.
Yeah, that's fair. So the pregnancies have been, in general, challenging ones.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, a lot more than when I was pregnant with my son. But I'm a little bit older now, so it's probably my body just saying things are going to be a little harder.
Gosh.
But yeah, it's exciting.
Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that.
It's funny because I told my hairdresser the other day as well, and I was like, the people closest to me don't know, but I've told a couple like secret people, you know, that
like,
aren't gonna tell my mom.
Those who aren't in. There are many reasons I'm often grateful to be a guy instead of a gal, and that's one of them.
yeah, for sure. When I've been just a little bit lazier lately, you know, my husband's just been picking up the slack.
Sure.
I feel so guilty, and I just whenever I feel guilty, I was like, hey, I'm growing a human being. It's not gonna be like this always. I'm not always this, you know.
No. Yeah, and it sounds like he's really gracious in his extension that way.
Yeah.
That's really sweet.
He really, really wanted a second child, and I think I would have been okay anyway. But so I was like, well, not that I make him feel guilty, but I'm
by the way. Did you find any challenging contexts that you and your husband had to work out because of the infusion of a new member in the family?
Yes, that was actually, that's actually answers the question you asked earlier. That was the biggest change for me, because we had, I guess you could say, a perfect relationship before our son, and then adding that to the mix was quite difficult, actually. We had a hard time with him. He cried a lot. It didn't seem really bad postpartum, so it put a strain definitely on our relationship. But it also made us stronger, I guess, you know, realized that we could get through it together. But yeah, that was, you know, I remember my husband saying, well, before I was pregnant, he said, you know, if we have kids, we want to promise each other it won't change anything, but, you know, until you have one, you realize that that's not really a possibility.
Yeah.
You know, when you're dealing with fatigue and stress and things like that. But we've come out of it stronger, but it was definitely a challenge at times.
Yeah, I can see that. How would you define postpartum?
For me, it was not feeling like myself, or feeling like a shell of myself, or kind of being outside looking into this person that wasn't myself. And
was a gut punch to your identity from before, and you're trying to regain what that looks like again.
Yeah, exactly. Or a version, at least a version of what it is now, since I'm a mom now. But like I said, I think I was 37 when I got pregnant, so I was just used to me, myself for 37 years, so it was kind of a shock to give that up, or to, I think I had to find a balance on, like, I might not be the same person, but just almost a better version of myself. Yeah.
And then before your first one, how long were you and your husband together for?
About 3 years. So we weren't together very long.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were still very much in the honeymoon stage.
Yeah.
Like, everything is, and yeah, I think we had kind of started dating during COVID. So,
Yeah.
So it was just like him and I, and it was kind of fun, and like we were in the pandemic together and all that. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What a way to go through the pandemic. When most are seeing doom and gloom, you guys are still in the rosy color zone.
It's just crazy.
Ideal time.
Sorry.
An ideal time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it went one of two ways for some couples.
Yeah. Oh yes, I guess you're right. Yeah. Gosh.
Did you just start work this morning? When you picked me up?
You're probably my second ride today.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, when I sleep until 4 o'clock ish, then people are like, we don't comprehend. Because usually I wake up a couple hours earlier, so yeah.
I used to wake up at I think I used to do like this workout class at like 5 o'clock in the morning, or even, I can't remember what time. It was early anyway,
Yeah.
So I was up at like 4:30. That was definitely my earliest that I would get up, and it was a great way to start the day. I just feel energized, but by 8 o'clock, yeah, pretty beat. 8 p.m.
I've heard of this dynamic of people who work out who get energized by working out. I'm like, I'll take your word for it.
It was one of those classes where the music was extremely loud and the lights were extremely bright. And, like, people are yelling, so it's like this. You don't have a choice but to wake up.
Sounds like boot camp.
Yeah, pretty much.
In the
Yeah.
military. Wow, that's awesome. So, I'm probably about a decade ahead of you in parenting. So, if you're a decade, yeah. So,
Advice?
insights I'd probably share for your consideration. It goes fast.
Yeah.
It goes really fast. Like a decade, and 13, 11, 10 of my kids' ages. So one of the things I've often reflected on, Valerie, is we don't get a choice in the kind of personalities we get in these kids.
Right.
So it's like how to sort of catch the blueprint that you have in this child, and then how to work with that. Last night, Monday nights I usually play beach volleyball.
Oh, nice.
Lot of fun. But I was chatting with one of the opposing players, and he and his son play on the same team.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, it's just a really fun team to play. But I've really watched their dynamic and really appreciated what I've seen. But last night I took him aside. We were both, standing on the side because we were off for a bit. We were across the net from each other, and I just say to him, I just popped it on him. He didn't even see it coming. Because usually I'm the goofball on the net.
Yeah, right.
I'm the one who's like talking to the other teammates and making fun of so. But he didn't see it coming. But I just said, just as an aside here, I said, I would love to hear your best parenting tip.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I didn't have to get back to you.
Yeah, well, you catch people like that haven't thought of that, or they're great parents and they just are, and haven't thought of it.
Sure. So his response, I really appreciated him still reflecting on it even this morning. But he said to me, be their biggest encourager.
Wow.
And he said that because they believe a lot of what you tell them.
Yeah.
Right? And so oftentimes when there's frustrating components or elements which you want to infuse in your constructive feedback or whatever, they sort of internalize that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think for all of us, there's things we experience in our childhood all of us collectively
Absolutely.
that are challenging on a social level, that if not addressed or processed, and for most of us, again, that's the same scenario, it eventually translates to significant patterns of behavior in our grown-up years that we find difficult to trace because we don't go far enough back to those formative years, right? And so reflecting on what he was saying, I was like, okay, how can I infuse more of that even in my kids' life in a compelling way, whereby it's just not something that they, what it's like when you get used to something really good and then you sort of like take it for granted.
Right.
How to be able to keep that fresh, for example, when you're like,
in relationships and your parenting, everything.
Yeah, how to be able to savor. For example, like I enjoy a plethora on a daily basis of rich conversations, like worthwhile. I never know what we're going to talk about, but I just have this confidence given my skill set and what I've worked at over time. And the fact that I have it like continually over and over and over, it doesn't mean in essence that it doesn't get stale. It's more like each time it's more like, this is still meaningful.
Right.
This is still rich for me. This is still my hell yes zone, if you will. How to be able to infuse that sense of vitality, even when I consider his inputs and saying, how can I infuse more of that so that they do feel the potency of it over time, right? And I guess in some sense that means some work is entailed in making it fresh, coming from different angles.
It's so easy to be complacent in every aspect of life. It's a good reminder.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I think our generation is personally, I don't know what your parents were like, but we're a lot more in tune with how we're parenting and a lot more. I find, I don't know. I was a child, obviously, when my parents were parenting me, so it could have been completely different. But I feel like we're more in tune with that, and the effect that we have on our kids as well, and our reactions to things and all that.
Well, I would probably even say on top of that as well too, there's more awareness. Perhaps because we have more resources available, there's more conversation around that.
Absolutely, more conversation. It's a good point.
Absolutely. Whereas in our past generations, there wasn't that access, if you will, to what could be. Which is so that I'm
even
grateful.
Talking about postpartum, never heard my mom say that, and I'm sure she dealt with some kind of some level of postpartum, and it's great that we have a support system with our friends, with even the internet. Sometimes isn't always the best resource, but there's a lot of help out there and a lot of
I'm super grateful for that as well too. I think about like how maybe they survived and made it work, right? The conversation has shifted from just surviving to actually relishing, maybe is a good word to use. Like, how can we relish our mental health? Because that's something that was
not first. Because we realize that we're better parents if our mental health is in check.
Which you're in the middle of because you have young ones. So the challenging question would be like, how are you and your husband carving out space so that you do get relief?
And it's been a challenge, and we don't always. But it's knowing when we have to tag out, or knowing how both of us react to things, and when one of us, needs to tag out. For us, it was like, I don't want to talk about this right now. I'm a little bit emotional, so let's talk about it later. So it's hard though when you're in the moment.
It's a wonderful option when you have choices to choose it, even in the words that you choose to use. You're like, oh, I'm recognizing this. I have words to be able to express this now, which is a huge game changer, right? That can be done tactfully so that you still have flexibility and not negating it and like burying it. It's more like, we'll get to this, but for now we just need a timeout.
And I think
brilliant.
My parents didn't, nothing was dealt with. It was a lot of just smothering emotions and feelings and everything. And so it was the kind of a behavior I learned, and I had to address as an adult as well, because I didn't want to bring that into my relationship.
at was, how do I show competence? How do I show, like, the right model and example and way and so on like that. So that was my big investment at that time. Since then, I've done some royal, colossal face plants in life. I've made some significant mistakes. I've done some awful things along the way. And so those have been very humbling experiences for me. Very humbling. To the extent, Valerie, that now I would say my biggest gift I want to give to my kids, not only to the world, but specifically to my kids. And I'll tell you why the world again in a moment. But to my kids specific, is we're in a setting, I think, where the script that I was operating off of before was one that collectively, like, we as a society vibe, whereby we show up in the world having checked ourselves in the mirror first and saying, okay, do I look okay? Do I look like, I've got it all together? Great, I'm going to go out there, regardless of if that was the internal state of affairs, right? And this pressure to, like, show up and not, like, have your pants down, figuratively, has been one that I think has shielded us from what true intimacy could look like, in the sense that as human beings, we never were designed to always look polished.
Oh, yeah.
The reality is, and this is the truth for everyone, I can tell this about anyone without even knowing them definitively, that you're a messy human, just like I am. And so I think in the aftermath, probably my biggest investment I'd like to share with my kids is, can I model for you what it looks like to be a messy human? And to give myself permission to be in this space. To give myself permission while also taking ownership and responsibility for what I need to take ownership and responsibility for. So I love being able to share with them when I haven't gotten it together. I love being able to model for them also what it looks like for me to take responsibility for my actions or my words, or how do I do the right thing when I need to do.
As well, sometimes when I'm like angry, we talk about it, I apologize. Reasons why I'm angry,
even acknowledging like that at some point in the future they're going to have their critique about my parenting, which is legitimate. Do you know what I'm saying? And saying, hey, I can't wait till that point when you feel safe enough or open enough to be able to share where I dropped the ball, for example, and what I could have done better, because that's just, again, my way of saying I was evolving over time. I was changing, and that's one of those things I just love to safeguard now, is that we weren't designed for that kind of perfection. In essence, like, we are shifting over time, and so along those lines, in a world that does demand that sense of, like, accomplishment, perfection, all the things, especially for my girls, what would it look like for us to legitimize our messiness, to celebrate it, and to pivot in such a way whereby we learn how to share words of grace to ourselves in the midst of it.
I remember my parents, like, not trying to hide any mistakes or anything, but just, not talking about it, or, so you feel like you have to grow up kind of in perfection. With your friends, with your family, everything.
Yeah, for sure. So I value those insights, painful as it was to get to them. But therein, I think, like, for me personally, and why I say the world as well too, is once upon a time I was really good at showing that polished front, and I was very successful in many realms, to be certain. And I think when others would see me, they would admire. They'd be like, oh man, you're like so good at everything. Which I didn't mind. But I think what I was missing was that true point of connection. So even while I was in community with them and they would admire and so on, they could never relate. Because they're like, I could never be like you. You're just on point all the time. And I'd never feel that safety to be able to say, actually, if I can connect with you, here's where I didn't get it together. Like, even now when I have, like, young people in my car, and, like, as we talk, they can kind of gain a certain sense. They often think I'm as young as they are, but I'm like, no. But nonetheless, when they're like, but you seem just, like, all put together, and I say, once upon a time I was able to sell that so effectively, but now I value actually papering that, because what you're seeing now, there's an authenticity to this. There's a way that I've learned some things that have brought me to this point, but I wasn't always in this plane of sorts. Let me tell you about the messiness I had to get into to sort of work through and eventually come to a space where I appreciate where I'm at now. One of the ways I put it for them is I so appreciate where I'm at, but the cost is too high. The cost is steep, and there's a lot of loss, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of like things that are under those currents, to be certain. People hurt as well too along the way.
Unfortunately, sometimes that has to happen to
absolutely,
be in a good place.
For sure. So, no, I love being able to pivot to a different place of showing up now, whereby I celebrate the points that brought me the most shame once upon a time, to say I feel confident enough in sharing this because I've processed it. This is no longer that category where it causes me deficit or loss or that element. So in so doing, I've discovered along the way that others are far more open to going into those zones that they've neglected for a long time. When a fellow human being paves the way and says, oh, by the way, if we can be real for a few moments, here's what my experience has been. And they're like, okay, this is the kind of authenticity that I want to have more of. And it just creates that bond or rapport that says, we can speak truthfully in this setting, So
I appreciate, and it's just asking the interesting questions too that sometimes that we haven't thought of or put any thought into. Like when you asked your friend about parenting, and it's that question also probably made him feel better as well about because he probably just parents every day and he's doing a wonderful job, and he's never sat down and said, wow, I'm a really good parent. Why am I a good parent?
Yeah, for sure. 2 final questions for you. One is easy, one is hard. You're like, man, way to set this up. Do you want the easy one or the hard one? Easy one. Which airline are we taking?
WestJet. That was easy.
The hard one, and this one's hard because the encouragement, the invitation is to say a solid, enthusiastic no, if that's your gut instinct first and foremost. When I don't Uber, because this is my primary gig, I love sharing ideas online on my platforms where I love inspiring others with, just this conversation has been really rich in that capacity. I always want to ask permission and consent because that's a really big thing, and I appreciate modeling what that could look like. So I would love to ask if you'd be open for me sharing the context of our conversation on my video platforms online. Okay, you're off camera, so your anonymity is still intact and no one knows.
My secret. My mom doesn't find out yet. Absolutely, I'm so happy.
If your mom follows me online,
that's right.
I recognize that voice.
I would love her to find out this way.
That is so sweet. That would be a worthwhile story. That's so brilliant.
This is the best drive I've ever had.
What made it so?
The best ride. What a great start to my day.
What made it so though?
I've just started my day now with a very positive outlook and a lot to think about.
I give you more homework, you're saying.
I know. I had 4 hours now to really dive in and dig deep. Thank you so much. That was incredible.
Pleasure.
Take care. And what's your platform?
I'll give you my card so you can follow along here. This is my platform.
Amazing. That's great. Thank you so much.
My
Have
pleasure,
a wonderful day.
You too, though.
Okay, bye.
Bye.